welcome to everyone. Today's Friday in the Kitchen is a little bit different than what we normally do. We are prepping something, but we're making a fermented drink called Rejuvelac, and we're going to talk about fermentation and why it's important for us and how easy it is. Fermentation sounds really mysterious and hard, but it's actually very easy. And I was so shocked when I learned how to make some of these things. And Rejuvelac, it's kind of got a lemony flavor to it. It's not something well known, but it actually has this nice little flavor to it. And it's so easy to make with grains, but we're going to use quinoa to make our Rejuvelac today. And of course, it takes, so what's the thing with fermentation? It's very simple and easy. The thing with fermentation is patience, because you have to give those little microorganisms time to do their job and what it's going to do to your food. So I'd like to start, I'm going to switch over to do a presentation first. So we can have, I'm going to go to my desktop so you can see me here this way. So this is Fermentation Made Simple. And we started a couple of weeks ago making that creamy sunflower cheese that we could eat, just put it on some crackers. Last week we made the crackers. And guess what, ladies? I'm still eating my crackers. I still have a bunch left, which is a good thing. And my telltale sign that people like them, not just me, is my daughter's been eating them too. So that's the good news. And today we're making Rejuvelac. Then next week we're going to do our cheese again, but we're going to make it cultured cheese. And then we are going to work on aging it. Now, the aging process, you really have to have patience. So we'll set it up for the rest of August. And then September, I think I'm going to do breakfast, things for breakfast in October. Okay, so let's get
You mean
going.
September, not October?
Huh?
Did
September.
you say September?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do in September.
Breakfast?
Hmm?
So breakfast foods in
We're going to
September?
do breakfast things in September.
Like chia
Yeah, we'll see.
pudding?
You'll see. I can't give it all away.
Yeah.
I can't give it all away. All right. Okay, let's get going. I don't know why I'm having these. Do you still see my screen?
Yes, but it's only like the one page
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
okay. So that what you're on now.
One what is fermentation?
What is fermentation, right? So what is fermentation? Again, we talked about this a little bit. That maybe you think it might be complicated, because but it really isn't. It really, all fermentation is the allowing the beneficial microorganisms to transform food. And the bacteria are there doing all the work. What we're doing is creating the right conditions so that the bacteria can grow. What they do is they consume all the natural sugars in the food, and then they create the acids, because that's kind of like, you have when you work out, you burn your muscle when you're working out. The other side of it is the lactic acid, but the same thing, as the bacteria eat the sugars and consume the sugars, then we have acids that come out of that, and that's what gives fermented foods their distinctive tangy flavor. It can improve the texture and naturally help to preserve the food. So that's what the process is for fermentation. So let's move to the next slide. Why would we want to do fermentation? Because it's, like I said, it's simple, but you have to have some patience when you're doing fermentation. So the reason, so I'm going to start by saying that people have been fermenting foods long before refrigerators existed. And originally, fermentation was a practical way to preserve food. And over time, people have discovered that fermented foods actually taste amazing. So, some of the foods that you might see that are fermented is sourdough bread, yogurts, kimchi, sauerkraut is a real popular one and well known, miso, tempeh, and kombucha. And I don't want to forget the Rejuvelac. But they all begin with simple ingredients, but the fermentation transforms them into something entirely different and new. And one of the things about fermentation is it's not about adding more ingredients, it's about allowing time and nature to work together. And I want to talk because I love this story about sauerkraut. The word sauerkraut is German and it simply means sour cabbage. And while a lot of people associate sauerkraut with Germany, actually fermenting cabbage is an ancient food preservation technique that goes way before the Germans, centuries before the Germans. And fermented cabbage was actually eaten in ancient China and also they think in the Roman Empire, way long time ago. But over time, Germany and Central Europe have made sauerkraut kind of a traditional food, and that's why we associate sauerkraut with German. And if I'm going back to ancient China, during the building of the Great Wall of China more than 2,000 years ago, workers actually are believed to have eaten fermented cabbage preserved in rice wine. That was what they fed them to give them the energy and the boost that they needed to keep going. And later, Central Europeans adapted the process and then replaced the rice wine with salt to create what we now know as sauerkraut. And then Captain James Cook actually carried barrels of sauerkraut when he went on his long sea voyages because it stores well and it helped to protect the sailors from scurvy when there weren't any fresh fruits and vegetables available. And my mentor, Danielle Arsenault, and a few of you know Danielle, actually, when she used to do things like rock climbing in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta and probably in BC a little bit, she would take sauerkraut because it was so easy to, you didn't need to refrigerate it. It was, and it would stay nice. And it also would give you that boost of energy. Now, the other thing about sauerkraut, actually, one of the students that was in my class while we were learning about sauerkraut and all that, she was doing a road trip across America from Florida to California. And she took sauerkraut with her as her snack that she could have, a healthy snack without having to have a refrigerator for it. Take that to the bank if you want. So those are some interesting things about sauerkraut. So there's four main ingredients for successful fermentation. If you want to be fermenting sauerkraut, you need to start with some, it's more microorganisms that do the work, and the conditions that we create include giving them food. They need moisture as well, and we need to have the right temperature. So it doesn't work so well in the cold. It needs to be warm, and also we have to have patience. That's the other thing. It takes some time. And that's exactly what we're doing today with our Rejuvelac. And, it kind of reminds me of so many things in life. We can't force things. We have to give things time, especially around our health and other things. So this is no different than that. So those are the ideas. And that's just a little bit about the actual fermentation process. And I'm going to talk now about Rejuvelac. So I don't know. I know a few of you have heard of Rejuvelac. Anybody that knows Danielle and has taken her program knows her. But for the rest of us, so what is Rejuvelac? It is a very simple traditional fermented culture made from sprouting grains in water. And the finished liquid becomes a natural starter for other cultured plant-based foods. Particularly what I see a lot is using it for making cultured cheeses, plant-based cheeses. And it has that fresh, a little bit tangy, but it's very kind of a lemony flavor. And so you can actually enjoy it just as a beverage. You can just drink it if you want. You know how, like, we have kombucha, which when I started in this plant based world 13 years ago, people didn't know about kombucha. Kombucha is so widely known now, and it's a fermented beverage as well. Again, it's all good for our gut health. And Rejuvelac is kind of a similar. You could just have it as a beverage. You can culture your cheeses or other things. You can add it to smoothies if you want, which is then also using it as a beverage. And you can use it as a natural starter for other cultured recipes. And one of the women who is very famous in the living foods world was Anne Wigmore. And she believed that some of the most powerful foods are also the simplest. And she helped people to rediscover the traditional techniques like sprouting and fermenting and culturing. And she really didn't, and a lot of people associate her with inventing Rejuvelac. It's not that she invented it, but she definitely reintroduced Rejuvelac to the more modern natural foods movement and helped people to really understand how simple sprouted grains and water can be. And yeah, so that's a little bit about Rejuvelac. Not something you hear about in kind of traditional spaces, but and I'm going to now go over how simple it is to make. Here it is. Look at all these steps. And yeah, this is, I think, the grain here in the pictures is not necessarily quinoa, but it's, you'll get the idea. So the first thing you do, so when you're making, one of the things of making your own fermented foods is it's more kind of more shelf stable than grocery store. So I want to, just before we actually talk about the fermentation, one of the things that happens is like pickles, and you can make pickled carrots, and you could take your Rejuvelac and make pickled carrots with it. So that's another way from the fermentation. And sauerkraut is also fermented, but I also want to warn you that a lot of grocery store foods, if you find these things in the grocery aisle, then they have gone through pasteurization. And what pasteurization does is it heats up the food to destroy the bacteria, including all those beneficial bacteria that we were growing for the taste and for our health. And so when you go and buy like sauerkraut and pickles in the grocery aisle, those have been pasteurized, so you're not getting the benefit of those, the fermentation process, other than the taste. And I know when my grandmother and my mom used to do canning, they did the same thing. They would do the pickles. Oh, and my grandmother made such amazing pickles. But what they did is they actually used vinegar and they pasteurized it. So it wasn't a true fermented food, the same what we're talking about here. And yes, you could put little cucumbers, or the ones, especially right now in at least where I am, they're starting to pop up the little cucumbers for pickles into the jar and make your own pickles yourself. But anyway, I just wanted to raise that not all sauerkraut and pickles are that are these pickled things are fermented. If they're pasteurized, they've destroyed all of those beneficial bacteria. And so if you're looking for the fermented versions, you're going to want to look in the refrigerator section at your grocery store. And they do have, actually, I haven't talked about kimchi, but kimchi is another one that you can get. Sauerkraut and kimchi are very similar, just maybe a few different ingredients. And then you could do fermented pickles. They have them like here we have, I think it's scrubs pickles. You see them in that cloudy water. Kombuchas as well. Some plant-based yogurts. You want to make sure that they say that they contain live active cultures. And that's something usually you'll see signs like it's raw, unpasteurized, or contains live cultures, and that you should store them in the refrigerator. So that's how you can tell. And I will also say that these things tend to be some of the more expensive foods out there too, which is the unfortunate thing, and one of the reasons why you can make your own pretty easy as long as you have the patience to do it. And so our Rejuvelac, once we make it, once you've got your fermentation down and you're happy with where it is, put things in the fridge. It's still fermenting, but because it's in the fridge, it's not fermenting it's not really fermenting at a very slow rate, but it's still there. It's still living bacteria, and but they are not really fermenting at that point, at least at a very, very slow rate. Because remember, we want to have temperatures usually around room temperature, maybe a little more than that, to really get the fermentation process going. And then once we refrigerate it, then Rejuvelac itself will last about a week, 5 to 7 days in a glass container. And it's best in the first 3 to 5 days. And yes, that is what Rejuvelac is. We start by soaking our quinoa because we're going to do quinoa. Then we're going to sprout it for a couple of days. Then we're going to ferment it by putting it back in water. And then we get a finished product. And the last thing I'll say as part of my presentation, well, I have a little more because I want to show you what I've done. But the presentation part is that once you're finished and you pour off the liquid, which is the Rejuvelac that you get, you're going to end up with sprouted quinoa, which you can add to salads. You can blend into smoothies. So don't throw the quinoa out. It's alive and nourishing. You could put it in, if you're making homemade burgers or wraps, you could dehydrate it, put some spices on it, dehydrate it, and use it as a topping on salads or soup or roasted veggies. And you can cook it too. It's something you can cook. And yeah, don't let go of them. You could use it to make crackers too. You could put them in crackers if you want, the way that we did last week. But my last little bit is about the sprouting. Why do we actually sprout? And you hear about that, but what sprouting is a way to wake up the seed. And when the seed begins to sprout, it actually shifts from being dormant to becoming a living, growing plant. And during that process, there's changes that happen inside the seed. The complex starches begin breaking down into simpler carbohydrates, making them easier to digest. And then the proteins are partially broken down into amino acids, again, making them more available to the body. And some levels of certain vitamins, especially vitamin C and the B vitamins, will often increase. Also, minerals like iron, zinc, magnesium, and calcium become more bioavailable because the compounds that bind the minerals, like phytic acid, are reduced. So you get more bioavailable, and also digestive enzymes become more active, which means that it makes it easier on your stomach to digest things. So sprouting makes foods easier to digest, easier to absorb, and often more nutritious. So if you sprout broccoli sprouts or broccoli seeds and make broccoli sprouts, they are 50 times more potent than actual broccoli. So they are very powerful in terms of their nutrients. And yeah, so this very easy to do sprouting too. You just add water and let them germinate. So if people are interested at some point, we can do a little thing on sprouting, or I actually think I have some YouTube videos that I can share with you if you're interested that goes through sprouting. And I think when I was doing all that stuff, Kathy and I were on video together. I don't know if you remember all that,
I
Kathy.
do. It was so cool because it was kind of like you had them at different levels, like a couple days. It was really cool.
So we could maybe I could pull those out for people at some point. Okay. Now I want to just show you before we go any further my journey over the last few days, last week. And this is where I'm going to show you live today, but it might be easier to see it on the screen. So day one, all I did is so I use the quart or 1 liter canning jars or mason jars, and now is a beautiful time to get them because as the harvest is coming in with summer, all the grocery stores are having all their canning supplies out. It's an amazing time to buy your canning stuff. And those little black jar rings. You know, the mason jars come with metal jar rings. Well, I like these plastic ones that you can see on my jar here. I always buy the wide lid so you can actually fit your hand into it, and then everything kind of works easily. I bought last year, they had nobody, I guess they had a whole bunch left over. And I bought up like 5 packs of these jar rigs so that because I like the plastic ones over the metal ones. The metal ones rust, and if you're canning or you're doing like fermenting, especially like with sauerkraut where it's salt, it's very corrosive and you really are, you're not supposed to. You definitely don't want to use metal. So I bought all these plastic jar rings. I was like in heaven. The shop manager in the produce section, I think he thought I was crazy. Anyway, because he had to go get them. They put them away. They didn't sell them. I said, I'll buy them. I'll buy them. Anyway, okay. So the first thing you do it's like one day, maybe in the morning, you take a cup of quinoa, put it in your jar and fill it with water and just let it sit on the counter. Find a nice spot that's warm and let it sit and soak. And then at night, you're going to rinse it and then fill it back up with water. So one day we do water to soak it. This is to get it alive, take off the enzyme inhibitors, and get the seeds ready to sprout. So then day two, we're actually going to sprout it. So what we're going to do in day two is we're going to, and you could do different things, but I'm showing you what I like. I like these little jar, they sit on the jar, they're sprouting lids, and I'm going to show you it, but it sits on there and I don't leave it I put it in a bowl. So you rinse off your seeds, like you rinse everything off your quinoa twice a day. So you rinse it off and do the rinsing with this little sprouting lid on, and then you put it upside down in a bowl, and then all the liquid will be able to run out, and you just let it sprout, and you just let it that way. And then at the end of the day you rinse it again and then turn it back upside down and let it sprout some more. On day three you do the same thing. It's just sprouted, so it'll be a little bigger, it'll look bigger, and you sprout it. You continue the sprouting. So you just let it sit on the counter, rinse it off in the morning, rinse it off in the evening. And it doesn't have to be exactly 12 hours, which is when you remember. And sometimes I forget, and it's very forgiving. It'll still be there for you. And then after a couple of days, what you'll start seeing the sprouting, and even with quinoa, it's not very big at first, but you'll start seeing the sprouts coming out, little tails that are going to come out. And it's starting to work. So then on day four, in the morning, I'm going to rinse my quinoa, and then I'm going to fill it with filtered water. And all my water is filtered because I have filter taps. I've already got the filtering built into my taps. So you fill it with water, your filtered water in your jar, and just let it sit on the counter, and you do nothing. Now you're not rinsing it anymore. You're just letting it sit. Now it's fermenting. So this is day one. You can see it's a little, after day one, it's a little bit cloudy. On day two, I did it 2 days. Now you could, after one day, you've got your Rejuvelac, and you can, if it tastes good and it tastes fine to you, you can just take the liquid off and separate the liquid from the quinoa. So use your quinoa the way that you want, and then the liquid is your Rejuvelac. I did it for 2 days, so it gets a little stronger. You can see it's a little cloudier. And that is, I didn't do anything. I just let it sit. And now I have my Rejuvelac, and I didn't take a picture of it because I didn't do that part yet. And I just want to show you, oh yes, when you look, I don't know if you can see, you see my little tails? I took a close up. It's hard to see.
I can see them.
Yeah, see the little tails? That's the sprouts starting to sprout there. Then that's sprouted quinoa. So this is, anybody think this is hard? I hope not.
Yeah.
You think it's hard? It just takes
Everybody
patience.
is patient.
You just have to remember to rinse it off and do that. So now I'm going to turn it back, and I'm just going to show you mine. This is like a demo more. So I don't have any lunch to eat today, ladies. Usually I have lunch out of this, but I don't today. Last week I could have ate crackers all day. So I would usually do this in my sink, okay? Let me start with, this is my day 2. So I would pull it out. So this is like it's been in the sprouting phase for 2 days. And I just want to show you my lids, okay? You can buy these. If you Google sprouting lids, you can buy these. I have tried all sorts of different sprouting things, and I like this the best. So you see it has like a mesh here, and it's got this little hole. So on this side, it's like it sticks out. And so you pour the water, you just run the water here, and it runs in. The water will come out. So what I usually do, and it has these things sticking up so that you don't want your mesh right against you want to have some room for the water to flow out. So this is why they have that. So what I'll do, if I'm in my house, in my sink, what I'll do is I'm pretending this is my sink. I'm just going to run my water and pour it. And I would just let it run. I don't want to let it run here. And then I do shake it up, and then pour it out. And then I just keep running it, run the water, and it can come out. I'm doing it in the sink, and then shake it up, pour the water out, run it a few times to rinse it off, and then just put it back here. And that's it. It takes like 2 minutes to run it. And then I put it against the wall up close to my sink, and I just rinse it off. This one here, this is the one that was sitting. So in this case, I only have 2 jar lids here, these ones. I do have more, but I put them in storage, and I got to bring them out. I think I have about 6. They come in packs of 2. So I just here's the plastic lids. They're ball leak-proof lids. I like those, but this is, you just put it on, rinse it, get rid of this liquid. And then now what I'm going to do is rinse this. I already rinsed it before, but I would rinse this out in my sink and then pour in the water, because this one's ready to go to the fermenting stage. Pour in the water, boom, and then just sit it on the counter just like that. And you don't need to have a whole bunch going at the same time. You're good. And you can just see, they kind of swell up a little bit more each day. They start off like small, so you start off very easy. I won't. Take your quinoa, put a cup of it, boom, put a cup of it. I've got four scoops here. I've got a 1/4 cup measuring. Get it all over the place. Add your water. You don't even have to put the lid on if you don't want to, but I usually We'll put a lid on. You could use cheesecloth. You can use there's all sorts of different ways that you can use to strain them. I like this the best. It's so easy. Put your water in and then just let it sit. And then at the end of the day, rinse it off, let it sit, put more water and let it sit. And then when it's the next day, after a day, move it to the sprouting where you turn it upside down. And then after, this is 5 days. So this would be day 6. I'm gonna do the same thing. Let me take my lids. I'll take this lid. I'll switch it. And hopefully I don't lose my Rejuvelac. I'm going to have a little, and then I'm going to pour off the Rejuvelac now. Voila. So for this one, it was 1 cup. It gives me 2 cups or a half a liter. And I could let this sit in a bowl to get the rest of it out, and then use this quinoa's ready to use. You can use it, put it in the fridge. It'll last up to a week. Or I have this. It looks like a little lemon drink. And it does have a lemony flavor. It kind of has a little bit of lemony flavor to it. And that's it. So we're going to use this to make our cheese next week. And that'll be the next fun thing that we're doing. And if you notice it feels slimy, or it feels you have anything growing, then throw it out. But I mean, this looks just like a drink. It's clear. It's not clear, but it looks like a drink. It doesn't have any slime. It doesn't have anything growing on it. And I would put this in the fridge and it can last up to a week. And that is it. We have a fermented drink just by being patient, just babying our quinoa throughout the week. And in like 5 days, you have your own fermented drink. And if you like it and you want to have a little bit every day, you could probably do, every week, make a batch for yourself. All right. Very good. And Gloria, I know you've made it before, so I think you know what it's like. I'm just going to move here, and then I'm going to end up sneezing. Sorry about that. Does anybody have any questions on how to make Rejuvelac? I'm going to see.
I do.
Yes.
So the first one is, how much could you drink of, are you supposed to drink of that? Because I've heard that with kombucha that you're not really supposed to drink the whole bottle, just a little bit.
Yeah. Fermented foods, you don't need a lot to get the benefit from it. Like sauerkraut, you could, like a tablespoon. If you put a tablespoon of sauerkraut on your food, then have a little bit of fermented foods every day is good for you. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't look into that. It's not something I haven't done a lot of drinking of it. I have drank some, but
I think the problem with the kombucha is the sugar. So if you're concerned about sugar, then you don't drink as much. But the Rejuvelac, there's not really sugar.
yeah, it's
Thank
just
you.
natural sugars. And
then
go for it.
I know my next question was, you mentioned that this is ancient, but the name sounds so
Modern?
new. Yeah, well, it just did the lady who introduced it, did she come up with this name, or is it really an old name? Because it sounds like such a new name, doesn't it?
I have no idea where the name came from.
Okay.
That's a good question, but I know Anne Wigmore, who was in the 50s, very prominent in the living foods. She found Carol and Gloria. I think she founded the
Hippocrates.
Center.
Yeah, the Wigmore Center.
Yeah, and then she is very famous for that, and also wheatgrass. She did a lot of stuff with wheatgrass as well, and living foods. So this is like living foods. People call it raw foods as well. But I just know that she's revived the Rejuvelac, but I think it was around in different forms before her. I don't know where the name comes from. I can,
Cool. And it was interesting that it says you can use buckwheat as well.
yeah. Yeah, and I actually like sprouted buckwheat is so like we put it in granola and stuff because it's the same thing. You soak it and it gets like slimy at first when you and it really goes out in volume as it's absorbing the water, the liquid, and then after you finished with the sprouting, then what I do is I dehydrate it and then we use it in our granola if we're doing granola. So it's very good. That's the only way I've ever had buckwheat. And I know like the cereal Kasha uses buckwheat for a lot of things. But yeah, you can make your own, ferment your own stuff for sure. Yeah, that's a good one too on that. And one of the things I wanted to say is like sourdough, like if you I know that you have a starter and you just keep that starter going. Kombucha is the same way. So a lot of these, once you get the culture started, you keep borrowing some of the culture. You keep the culture alive and you keep borrowing from the culture to keep it going. And with the sourdough, it actually is easier to digest than other breads. If you're gluten free, that's great. But if you're looking for something easier to digest from a bread perspective, the sourdough is easier because it's fermented. Now, what else was I going to say? I had something else that I was thinking of as well. But yeah, I mean, it's, oh, back to the sugar in the kombucha. So you can make your own kombucha as well. We made it in Danielle's class, and I've made some myself. And I think sugar is part of what feeds the microorganisms in kombucha, but they put a lot more sugar than that when they're doing a lot of the kombuchas that you buy in the store. And as the liquid ferments, the sugar amount of sugar decreases. But again, kombucha in the grocery store is all fermented, and then also it gets to the point where you have the effervescence as well. And so when we made it, it wasn't at that level. We kept it. It was still like a still drink. So, but you can make it's pretty easy to make, similar to this, it's pretty easy to make your own kombucha. Oh. All right. Our Zoom user, Vera, said that she's personally gone to Ann Wigmore's lectures and classes in California. And yes, wow, that's pretty special to have actually gone to her classes. And I know that like the Hippocrates Center which she was not part of at the end, but the Hippocrates Center is in Florida, I think. And you can actually go there and visit, and a lot of people go there for looking after their health issues as well. But yes, a lot of people will, I guess in the nutrition, will subscribe to having a little bit of something fermented every day. Helps with your gut health. You just need a little bit, and also it's good to do a variety. So you can do kimchi and sauerkraut and miso. There's so many different things, and do a variety. And Vera says she used to do wheatgrass juice. Yeah, I actually do wheatgrass juice, but I buy the frozen juice in little pellets, and then it's like I add water to it, and it's not too bad. Oh, so there's a center in San Diego. Maybe there's more than one center, but the one I'm familiar with is in Florida for the Hippocrates Center. Anyway, so we talk a lot about the healthy stuff today. Well, everything is healthy that we're doing, but this is like the real brass tacks. Next week, we're going to do our cultured cheese with our Rejuvelac. And I might have a drink of it. I don't want to drink out of there. It's pretty full. I'll get my straw and drink a little bit. Get my fermented food in today. All right. Well, if there's no questions, I'm excited to have you guys next week where we are going to look at our cheese and get our cultured cheese going. Thank you for joining today.